And there's a lot to get through for you tonight on the question of the nominations of the MMDCEs. There are many, many questions that I know you've been asking all day since yesterday when the nominations of who will become your district, municipal, metropolitan chief executive became obvious, because they really are the custodians of development at that level. And so let's get into it. I have the man at the helm of this all, Mr. Dambocho, who is joining me later to get to the bottom of answering some of the key questions you've been asking in the last 24 hours. But before we do that, I want to break down for you some of the key numbers. Before we sit down, let's build the background into that conversation. Remember that we estimate, if you speak to the MPP itself, more than 1,300 applications they received to vet in terms of the those who have put themselves up to be considered for the various vacancies in the district assemblies across the country in all 16 regions. And we know that the list of nominations have now gone to the ministers for them to work on. Now, this table here that I got my research desk to put together tells a very interesting story. Remember that the process that the NPP chose is a pretty interesting process. So they had all these numbers, more than 1,000 people applying, and then those people were fed a shortlist, they go to the vetting, all because they wanted to make sure, yes, they're getting the very best out of this, but also dealing with, we know, the acrimony and the chaos and the violence that sometimes follows. If you do that process, I guess, we'll get into the main reasons shortly, but it limits that tension. And the president then is given the prerogative to choose from that list of recommendations. And so we were curious to know, did the president work entirely within the scope of the recommendations that he got from the party's vetting committee? Not entirely, in fact, because he chose to go by his own decisions in some of the cases. And if you see the table here, it tells a story. So the green bar is the number of persons that the president nominated, and the red bar is the number of persons that he rejected, that the committee recommended. And so you have a situation here in the Greater Accra region, for example, where you see 10 people in all were rejected by the president. And that includes a recommendation for the maintenance of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly chief executive, the Accra mayor, who the committee felt had done pretty well in the Metropolitan Assembly, had led the sanitation campaign, etc. And ourselves, like here at Joy FM, we had done a campaign with him and still do a campaign with the AMA to deal with sanitation. It's an award-winning initiative called the Joy Clean Ghana campaign. One of the reasons that they recommended that the president maintain him, but the president didn't go with that. He decided to go with a woman, which in itself is a good thing, as you see later, the gender question. For a big key area like Greater Accra, we have a woman for a very long, long time. But that tells you a story here in Greater Accra. If you go to Northeast region, same story emerges. The president, turned down two of the suggestions that came to him, went with his own entire, people in that part. If you go to the Eastern region, same story emerges. The president rejects 12 of the nominations, 12 of the recommendations that he got, and then appoints his own people. And then we have the Western North, 5 people he turned down, although the committee had said, we believe these are the people you should be considering. In the Western region, we see this. Many have looked at this to say, it's possibly the reason why we're having the chaos still in some of the parts of the country, because the president had gone with the nominations. The work that committee has done should have solved a bit of the problems, and the president simply created a bit more problem for himself by ignoring some of these recommendations. We'll get into why shortly. And then we see in some of the key areas, for example, where this has come up. We see in places like Tripoli, where there has been violence because of the nomination of a particular individual. The MPP Youth Wing, for example, they have called on the assemblies to unconditionally accept the 260 nominations. And I spoke to Mr. Boachi today, who is a national youth organizer, on this particular issue, because he was key to appeal to them for calm. But this is another reason why many are asking questions, because if you look at the president's first term and his second term, the number of days it's taking him to make these nominations, twice as many days compared to his first term. So you think that by the time he got to the decision, at least the party would have sorted out everybody else, and the chaos we've seen in Tripoli and others wouldn't have happened. But we still saw a bit of that. So in his first term, it took him 109 days, we counted, to put forward his nominations. And that is his first term. And many thought that would have been more difficult to do because you're coming in the back from opposition, you owe a lot of people, and you need to appease them. But he took him just 109 days. His second term, rather, it's taking him 225 days to make his nomination, if you're counting this from the 7th of January. Why is that? Even this amount of time, why didn't that solve the problems that we've seen arise on the back of Sunday's announcement? We'll get into that very shortly. And then you look at this graph here. We always want you to appreciate this from a graphical point of view. You've had the numbers. We want to break it down for you so it helps you appreciate what's happening. So quickly, if you look at this table, you see the area where the most assemblies, I guess, is the Ashanti region with as many as 43, and you have the Greater Accra, and then we have the Eastern as well, all coming in very significantly. And then the key question about, okay, so what's gender got to do with this, is what you see in this next pictorial representation of the gender balance here. Only 38 is something that many have criticized. And I know Mr. Boche is a feminist himself. He loves to encourage women. And so what happened here? We'll ask him about that. Because you have 222 people who are men, and you have only 38 women. And the women say 14%. It's just simply woefully inadequate. For a party that has, for a long time, put in its manifesto to have 30% women representation in government generally, they could have done far better. What does he say to that? And if you look at the gender distribution, for in the Western North, we see a case where they have a single, for example, women in regions with one female nominee, Northern Volta, Bono East, and Bono. I mean, only one in each place. Say it's not enough, but women in civil society have said. Now, prior to the release of the MMDCE appointments, we know that the civil society have demanded 30%. In fact, both parties agree that this number should be something that governments should be working at in terms of including women in the decision-making process. So what happened? We've seen Mr. Dambocho, who's my guest, say that the district is awaiting inauguration. And this is one of the key things that had come up today, by the way. This is the Guan district. And this has to do with the SALL residents, right? Santro Kofi, Likpe, Akpafu, I mean, people in that area. They've raised concern about they don't have a nominee yet. Why is that? We'll get into that very shortly. So we have 260 minus 1. When is that going to be resolved? Because I know the minister had officially announced that Likpe Mate as the administrative capital for the district. And so if that is the case, why don't we have a nominee in that area? I've heard today the MP in one of the areas there, the NDC MP in that area, just close bordering that particular part of the town, raise concerns about this and say this is another issue of not lack of representation for the people in that area. That is the Boem constituency MP, because they don't have an MP, and then now they don't also have a nominee to represent them at the district level. What's going on there? Mr. Dambocho is my guest. After a short break, he's seated. All the questions you've been asking since morning, I'll put to him. Hopefully, I get the answers that you are seeking. Stay with us. And Mr. Damboche, as I have previously advertised, is my guest on PM Express tonight, and he's in the studio with me. He is the local government minister, and he has the honors task yesterday of putting out the list of nominees the president has settled on to occupy the vacant MMDCE positions. And since then, there have been reactions across the country. It's been the biggest story in the last 24 hours. And he's not a man unknown to the big issues, because he historically holds the record of changing our geographic landscape from 10 to 16 regions. That is one of the big constitutional issues that we haven't approached since 1992. So he's not new to this terrain at all. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Ivan.
I'm grateful to have you.
It's a pleasure.
Grateful. I mean, I have heard you condemn the violence in no uncertain term that had greeted your announcement yesterday. But you must at least, have an iota of sympathy and understanding from, at least coming from where they're coming from. The disappointment that they felt in not getting some of the people they expected through, especially when you've chosen to use a vetting mechanism, which means it's more transparent and people know those who came up tops. Did you at least appreciate where they came from?
Not at all. Not at all. Absolutely no basis for the disorderly behavior of some people. But thank God you're talking about only 1 or 2 places out of the 260. Yes, there's maybe this whole business of negative news is more news. That's why. Other than that, for me, if you have 260 nominations and for 260 districts, and you have only 1 or 2 places where there have been some disorderly conduct, it's not something that we should lose focus at all. But certainly, the law should take its course. I mean, there's nothing like because you're a party person or because it's about political issues, you can decide to go against the law and people should allow you to go. There's absolutely no justification about it. President is supposed to make appointments. He's made appointments. That's it. I
mean, in the case, there are other places where, yes, there haven't been violence, but we've heard community members say, but this is not a man that we anticipated. And we just did the graphical representation there. First, I need to understand, why did the party decide to use this approach of vetting people? Because we're not obliged to.
There's no party business in this. Article 243, Local Governance Act, clear. Section 20, is the president who appoints the chief executive. There's no law that I know of or regulation that tells how Mr. President should go through the process. That he should form a committee, he should have a vetting process. There's no law. So it's the president who should make the appointment. He decides that in the case of maybe the chief executive, 260 people. So some people have expressed interest and he wants to listen to them. It's a way of also getting data of the rich human resource that we have. So he decides to, employ that process. But it doesn't mean that he's bound by that. Not at all. Nobody has said anywhere. Nobody was promised that if you don't go through this process, you cannot be appointed. Nobody said that.
But the question is, then, what was the point of that vetting process then?
If not people on their own.
To guide the president in making a decision.
Yes, but it doesn't mean that he's bound by that. It's not. There's no legal thing to that. That you should necessarily go through this process. No,
he didn't need to do that, but he chose to do it.
At all. Yeah, he chose to do it for his own consultation, so that he'll get some advice from the process. That's all. He's not bound in any way to do it. And all those who went there were clear about that. And since you know about it, and it was no secret, there are some, I know for a district where 23 people showed up, expressed interest in becoming district chief executive. 23 people. And at the regional level, 4 of them were selected. 19. You use the word disappointed, so they were also disappointed. Did you hear of any violence? 19. Those who came to disappointed are not more loyal to the party or better in any way than those who were also at the regional level, they were not selected to move on to the next process. And it happened throughout. Some places there were 15 people, others there were 11, so 4, 7 were not selected.
But
by so doing, if at any point in time somebody gets disappointed and they can behave disorderly, no, that can be no basis for it.
But choosing this route creates expectation. Creates expectation.
Yeah, but those who came, the 23 people who moved, expressed interest, they had expectation to move on to the top.
But this is beyond the people. It's also because of followers. It's a party game.
No, but I'm saying that those who started, 18 people, 20 people, 12 people, 8 people, 7 people in a district who showed interest, even at the regional level, some of them couldn't move beyond the regional level. And there were many of them who did not. Nobody heard of that. And I'm saying that those who move to the next level where they appear before a national vetting committee are no better party people or loyalists in any way than those who did not. And yet nobody heard of any distraction or disorderly conduct. So let us not give those people who are doing that any basis at all. They have absolutely no basis.
So as we've just illustrated, the president still largely in many cases went with his own instinct on
exactly. There are people who did not, and it happened their time. It happened in 2017. There are people who never appear before in the vetting. It could be that Evans, I believe you can do this thing. I know you, but you are not the type of said, well, I want to do it. So you don't even put yourself up. You don't appear before anything. But Mr. President knows who you are. He knows that you can do it. He can appoint you.
So why did he just go for that?
No, that's a choice. For me, there's no debate about this.
The reason why that is important, because for many, it took the president 225 days to arrive at this.
He did the same thing in 2017.
2017 took him 109 days.
So the issue is not the process. The issue is not the process. But
the process this time had left us.
No, but so two things. Which one are we talking about? Is the time or the reaction? Because the same process was employed, and you how many days? 100 and something.
225 days.
No, how about the
109 days.
Okay, so the same process is employed 109 days. The same process is employed 200 days. So the issue is not the process.
You're not saying that you're okay with how long it's taking for this decision to be made?
Well, I'm saying that it's a different matter for discussion if you're talking about that. But if you're linking it to the process.
But didn't the process account for this too?
Yeah, but why didn't it account in the first place that you got 100 days? You get my point. If the issue is the process, then it means that one process, the same process, 109 days, the same process, 200 days. So the issue is not the process.
The people who were disappointed, was there an attempt before the president came out to reach out to them? Just curious.
Yeah, but you see, what I'm saying is this.
Because you saw the list.
All those who appear before these committees, all of them left with the understanding that they are just putting themselves up, and the final decision, as Mr. President, they all had that understanding. All of them had that understanding. Yes, and that Mr. President is not bound even to select somebody from amongst them. They all had that understanding. There's none of them who can come out and say that they didn't have that understanding.
What accounted for the 225 days this year and the delay in making these nominations?
Mr. President had to make that decision, and this is his decision to make.
Well, yeah, I get it. But what accounted for
the most important thing is that the assemblies were functioning. I will admit to one or two people, I think we lost some DCEs who were not replaced, and then about 6 people who became members of parliament. They were former MDCs who became members of parliament. So for those places, the regional ministers had to act for them to interview. But apart from that, all the other MMDCs, they were working. Since I assumed office as a minister for local government, they have been coming there. They write letters to me. They don't even sign as acting. They write as substantive district chief executives. They follow up on projects. They are always in Accra.
But you admit this is taking inordinately too long.
But I'm saying that people were working. There was no vacancy anywhere. There was no inactivity anywhere. So the issue of delay or no delay can only be linked to whether people were working or not working. There was no vacancy, people were working. So what is the issue of the delay?
I mean, the issue is...
If you have to work and you are working, the functions of the assembly was ongoing, the duties, the district chiefs were discharging their duty.
The president had to put in stopgap measures to accommodate the lack of substantive MMDCEs. There's a reason why the law...
I'm not sure of that.
He did. I mean, he asked those who were there whose term had expired to stay on until appointment had
but
confirmed.
so they were working.
Yeah, my point is there's a reason why the Constitution creates this scenario where you must have substantives, because that's when the assemblies work more efficiently, when all of them have been confirmed and they're in a position and they are confirmed and working. So without them, they may work, but not to the standards that we expect.
No, I think you are only speculating.
No, but that's what happens.
No,
in this case, because if it can take you 109 days,
how was that assessed? How did you arrive at?
If it can take you 109 days to make,
how did you arrive?
If it can take you 109 days to make appointment in 2017,
yes.
If it takes you 225 days the next time, definitely there's something amiss.
No,
there definitely is.
No.
Even the time spent.
Evans, you're only speculating. Let's go. If you can tell me of a district, I have told you that about where we have about 2 or 3 people who unfortunately passed on, and then there's 6 people who became members of parliament. Yes. Beyond that, where do you have any evidence that the work of the assembly was done? Where? You don't have it. You're only speculating.
No, but as we speak currently, yes, the process actually has just started, because now we're going to have a situation where the assemblies will have to confirm these people. What we've seen in the past is, in some places, that process actually also is a very long process. Some of them can be rejected, and that goes, it creates a cycle. You certainly, Mr. Dambo, we must get to a point where we fill these vacancies quickly, so the assemblies can get about the business of doing their work. You don't disagree with that?
Which vacancy is this?
No, there's no MMDCE's vacancies.
There's no vacancy. There's no vacancy apart from the 6.
But the substantive positions have not been filled.
But that's not a vacancy.
There's substantive
I don't know why
positions.
there's an acting director of television in JoyNews.
We don't have confirmed. What I mean, we don't have confirmed MMDCEs. It's why you've made the nominations.
I agree.
Yes.
If there's an acting director of television at Joy TV, you call that a vacancy? It's not a vacancy.
But that is not a substantive
But
position.
that's not a vacancy.
I mean, let's look at the big picture. You're not saying that you endorse the current state of affairs, where it's difficult for the president to make a decision. It takes a long time for this to happen. We have acting people in there, and it takes us more than a year to
I'm unable to get the issue. The issue is that the functions of the assembly is known. The functions of DCE is clear. Those functions are being performed. So what exactly is the issue? We have come to the point where now names have come out for the nominees to be confirmed. They will be confirmed very soon, and then the work of the assembly. Let's talk
about the confirmation process. Yes. Because the local government minister.
Yes.
What's your own expectations of that process going forward?
We expect that. That's what I said yesterday. We expect the regional ministers to carry Mr. President communication to the Secretary of the various assemblies, and then inform the regional directorate of Electoral Commission, and for that matter, the district directors too. And then the process will start by the order 15 of the model standing orders. Yeah, within 21 days of receipt of that notice, this confirmation should start. So if they're able to do that this week, I'm sure some of this confirmation can start from as early as this week.
What do you say
and I expect that within the next 10 days, many of them, almost all of them, should be confirmed.
What do you say to the local government experts who say the process that we've seen have been so political, just like we've seen in the past, and we are not selecting, nominating people based on competence, but on political loyalty, and that produces a system where...
There's always a problem with these discussions. When some people
you disagree?
When some people think that for them, the moment you say it's been so political, but the whole thing is politics. It's local governance act. It's about politics. So what's wrong with being political? But that's the whole thing that we need.
There's a difference between politics and making a choice for the national, in the national interest. Partisan politics. So
partisan politics is not towards national interest. We form political parties. We have manifestos. We have our ideas. We have our values. And it's not in national interest. It's just in national interest. The reason that the point where people think that when they are not involved in partisan politics, they are cleverer than those of us who are involved in political politics. It's irritating at times, you know. So that when you are not wearing a political color, you don't belong to a political party, then you think that you have more national interest than those of us who are involved in politics. I'm unable to get the point. So when you choose people who, because they are in a political party, then they are not competent. Those who are not in the partisan are those who are competent. I mean, I just don't get it. Very illogical.
What criteria was used in these nominations, in the selection of who is nominated?
We know the functions in which they are supposed to play. It's clear in the Constitution, the role of the district chief executive, and the functions are very clear. And Mr. President knows this very well. So he chose people who can play these functions, supervise the process, offer leadership at the district level, be in charge of the political administration, the deliberative one, supervise all that. The functions are very clear. Act 936 is very comprehensive act that shows the various committees that should be formed, the role of the committees, the executive committee, and after that they all should do. And the chief executive offers leadership at that level. And it's clear. A president at that level should know the caliber of people who can fit into that. And he's vested with that power to do that. And he does that judiciously in the interest of the nation. And he chooses people who can perform that function.
And I put it to you respectfully, Mr. Dangote.
And we are bound, such people with so capabilities are bound in political parties. At least they are bound in my party.
This is more of a reward to loyalty to a party than to people who necessarily are the best qualified.
I totally reject that assertion because it's meaningless to me. What's the meaning of that? I know some mathematics. You draw Venn diagrams. Let's draw it, Venn diagrams. If you are this thing, we'll draw. So you draw a Venn diagram, political parties. Then Venn diagram, qualified people. And you say what? There's no intersection between political parties and qualified people. Once you are partisan, you wear a political party color, a shirt, you are not competent. And when you say, for me, I'm a what? Non-partisan, I'm a CSO or whatever NGO, then you are competent. I mean, come on. What's the meaning of that? What is the meaning of that?
Let's talk about some of the specific areas that have come up.
Well, this country we have. Professor Buzia, he was a politician. Professor, what do you call it? Bene, he was a politician. He became Minister of Finance under Liman. Dr. Joseph Rata, they were all politicians. Dr. Kwesi was a politician. So when people begin to think that, the moment you say you're a politician, you are all lecturers in the university. You all lecture the same students. When you decide to do partisan politics, then you are no longer intellectual.
There's a reason why the president,
yes,
and credit to him, decided to clip his own wings and put this up for us to decide in the referendum, giving a bit of his power away in getting MMDCs elected.
Yes.
Isn't there a reason there that he was looking at in terms of, well, I want to open this up to anybody who qualifies, not only from my party, to jump in there and run and contest? Isn't that attempt itself an admission that this process is flawed?
No. The issue is this. The same people, the same Ghanaians who go and vote for presidential candidates and elect presidents, the same Ghanaians go and vote for members of parliament, parliamentary candidates, and elect MPs. And you know from the various analysis of various elections that there are people who will go and vote for a particular presidential candidate. The same time, within 5 minutes, he will get a ballot paper and vote with the same symbol, but vote for a different, somebody from a different political party as a parliamentary candidate. The same Ghanaian who can be that sophisticated. You are saying that no, when it comes to assembly elections, let's not make it partisan. No. And it doesn't make sense that we shall have the superstructure being partisan, but then the base, you say it should not be partisan. It doesn't make sense. And we all know that after elections at the district assembly, political parties come out and say that in the assembly elections that we had, we won about 60%. Even though the Article 55 says that don't sponsor candidates. But parties will tell that, we have many of our members who have won the elections. You understand? So we cannot continue to live with that deceit. No. So let's make it open and let political parties sponsor people. There's other school of thought of what happened in the CRC, Dr. Fiajo's commission, which said that the president will nominate about 5 people, Public Service Commission will reduce it to 3, and then the 3 will be subjected to election. Yes, but not partisan. Our party, MPP, believes it should be partisan. And it's been practiced in countries, all over many big democracies. I mean, we elect people right from the local council area on partisan basis.
You have more than 3 years more. Will this be back on the table?
Yes. In 2020, it was in our manifesto that we shall build more consensus towards that. We deepen the consultation process, and it started. We have a committee in place at the ministry.
Your ministry?
Yes, some civil society organizations who have come to talk to us, and they are made available some of the documentation and the contacts and the consultation that they also did, and they think that we should do. Even though there's some division, some of the CSOs believe we should go for the CRC recommendation where it will be non-partisan, while others also still believe that it should be partisan.
But MPP's position hasn't changed on that?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's not changed.
But that is what killed the first attempt, wasn't it?
No, what killed the first attempt was that Mr. President had reason to believe that both the major political opposition party also believe in the same.
They did?
Yes.
But they disagree with you on the partisanship of it?
No. He had reason to believe that they believe in the partisanship.
Also?
Yes. Even in Parliament, the argument now became the process. If it becomes partisanship, can the DC be removed, and which one should be changed first, Article 243 or 241? And we felt that no. I think they were not being consistent with what we initially believed. And Mr. President felt that the first time we are ever going to touch the Constitution in regards to amending an entrenched clause should not be done without some consensus. That's why he put a stop to it.
So the current effort you're leading is
We're
to build
that we'll be able
consensus
to build a consensus
around this. I guess the main issue of election of MMDCE, that is done. Everybody agrees.
Well, we hope so. We hope so.
The only thing you need to sort of get consensus around is whether we should do that election on partisan basis. Okay. Yes. So who are you consulting? The parties? I guess the main challenge was the NDC.
We're trying to get a lot of work was done even behind the scenes. We've been told from this interaction that took place some few weeks ago with some of the major CSOs that there was a lot of consultation that they did with some of the political parties, members of parliament. It got to a point that at times the parliamentary party had different positions for some of their parties. So they are trying to bring all this to us to look at again. Then we'll know the areas that we have to focus on in building the consensus.
So what you can assure Ghanaians is that Nana Akufo-Addo hasn't forgotten this promise. He will definitely in the next 3 years before he goes attempt this again.
To build consensus towards it. That is how we captured it in our manifesto.
So when he gets to a point where he feels he has the consensus, he's back on the table?
Oh, sure.
Okay. Sure. Okay. So let's now look at some of the key particular areas and the issues that have come up. I obviously start at Tripoli for obvious reasons. I mean, were you fair to the people there? Because I mean, even forget about the individuals involved. The people had an expectation. You saw the video for the 1 or 2.
Who are the people?
I'm talking about
Evans.
the MPP
Who are
supporters.
the people?
So the committee recommended.
How many people
Mr.
did you see?
Kofi Salifu Orlando for
How many people did you see in Tripoli?
Well, I must
How
admit,
many towns and villages?
I must admit a few people who were upset.
Exactly.
But
how many towns and villages are in Tripoli district? Yeah. How many people did you see in that city, in the town Tripoli? And you think they represent the people of Tripoli district? Let's not glorify some of these things.
But on that point, to be fair, this are.
So you see 40
this is an MPP.
It doesn't matter. They are, let's say they are MPP people. You see 40, 50 MPP people of even 100 on TV, not happy with what has happened, and means they speak on behalf of the people.
But you're not dismissing their concern, are you?
No. But are you saying that they speak on behalf of the people of Tripoli?
Not definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
But definitely.
But don't say they're people. They are not.
But definitely you acknowledge they have some concern.
Some tens of people or 100 people have some concern. Yeah, but they have other 10,000 people who you haven't bothered to find out their concern.
So, but let's come to the issue.
Yes.
The issue is, committee recommends somebody else.
No, Mr. Evans, I've heard it in the media. Let's be clear. Let's dismiss this whole business of committee.
But it's a fact.
Yeah, but the issue is that
It's a
committee.
fact. I'm just stating a fact.
I sit in my office as a minister. Directors bring proposals to me. At times they come and say, no, I don't agree to this. I don't think this should be case. And if I am so to take the final decision, you say because I set up a committee and they bring 5 resolutions, I cannot cancel and do with 2 because it's a committee I set up, I brought it. Does it happen in Joy FM here, multimedia? That you set up a committee to go and do some work, they bring it to management. Management cannot review the work that the committee did. Why are you even making issue out of this? That Mr. President sets up a committee to do some work and advise him. They bring the report. And Mr. President decides to appoint different people. And it's an issue even in the white paper. I mean, I'm trying to find out. If you go to, is it 25 something? Committees of inquiry. Yeah. You know, there's a chapter in the Constitution. Yeah. When the President sets up a committee of inquiry, doesn't the government issue a white paper?
It does.
So why are you making noise out of this?
How is a party
I think we are doing that to justify what people are doing. A government set up a high-powered committee. They bring their work. Government issues a white paper, accepting some of the recommendations and rejecting some. And it is done. So what is strange about the fact that the President set up a committee internally to advise him, not bound by any statutory injunction. He does it for his own personal education for him to be able to make a decision. So he's not bound by it. And it happened in 2017. There are others who never submitted themselves to the process, but they were appointed. And so be it. So please, let us not make it an issue. It has absolutely no basis at all. That because somebody came for, what do you call it, an interview, and he was shortlisted. Somebody started from the district. As for him, he did not even cross the region. He didn't, cause any commotion. You came up to the level of national level. And yes, you appear before the national level committee. The committee recommends that they think that you should be the case. Mr. President says, no, I take the final decision. I don't think he should be it should be somebody else. And you think there's a justification for anybody to misbehave? Oh, absolutely not.
In Kumasi, absolutely. There's a famous case of Kennedy Kankam.
Yes.
Who, as you know, was interested in the KMAC. Yes. And then doesn't get it.
Yes.
And then he's taking to another district. In fact, the people in that district said, but you were not even interested in this district. So why are you here?
Again, the use of the people.
The people who are members of your party.
See, the people have been abused with this. People
in this contest, MPP activists.
Those revolutionary days, that they use the people to abuse. I mean,
true. But in this case, MPP activists.
To bamboozle the people. When they do things, they say, I do the name of the people.
But why? The man didn't have an interest in this.
Who are the MPP? But you see, so far as I know, there's no regulation anywhere. You know, in Parliament, to contest in the constituency, you should hail from there. You might have stayed there, I think, some number of years, 5 years in the last 10 years, preceding the elections, or you currently live there. You understand? In the case of district chief executive, I do not know of any such regulation, any such law that says that Evans cannot be the, let's make it metropolitan chief executive for Tamale. I do not know of any such thing. Unless there's somebody can point it out to me. So what is it?
But the facts remain that he was not interested in where the president had taken him. At least he expressed that in KMA.
No, there are two different things. I express interest in A.
Yes. I don't get A.
I don't get A. I'm taking
and then my
B.
boss takes me elsewhere.
It doesn't mean that I don't like B. It doesn't mean that.
Did he express an interest in?
I wouldn't know.
You don't know?
I don't.
Okay. But definitely, that is, you talk about consultation. The president is his appointment, his nominations, he's doing it on behalf of the people in districts. And that choice must at least reflect the people's wishes. This one doesn't reflect the people's wishes.
How do you arrive at that conclusion?
I mean, because we've had voices in the constituency.
That's
the man himself.
Do you know the population of that district?
The man himself.
Do you know the population of that district?
The man himself.
Yes.
Was not, by his own action, didn't think that that area was a place for him.
No. He had a choice to make. He chooses KMA.
Yes.
He appears for KMA. Mr. President thinks that, no, I think you can also do well at Aswanse. So he takes you to Aswanse. That is it. So you hear some voices. Look at the
Were the people consulted?
Population. I want to believe so. That so contact some consultations stakeholder will have taken place.
But I'm bringing you a man who was not even interested in your district.
No, you keep using that we're not interested, and I said no. I don't believe that that's the right way to use. He did not opt for that. He opted for here. But Mr. President can send you anywhere.
You know, he's almost being set
as minister for
local government.
Not because I went to Mr. President, I want to become local government minister. So please.
The president selected you.
Yes.
Called you, Mr. Damboche, I want to give you the ministerial job. You don't have a say in the matter. You definitely have a say in the matter. This is Damboche.
No, the say is whether after he has told you, you want to, as it were, take it. But not as if the fact that you are not going to express that you want A, does not mean that when it is given to you, you don't have that choice.
Mr. Kankam is being set up to fail because the assembly will fight back.
Why are you saying so? Why do you think so?
Because we've seen evidence of that in the other places before now, not under this president, before. Okay. The assemblies agitate, the constituency people agitate, and by the time you realize there's a cycle of rejection and renomination.
No.
That is a possibility.
No. We should always respect what the laws say. We make the laws. And the laws are clear that you should get 2/3 of those present and voting. You realize that in the case of presiding members, it's different. Presiding members is 2/3 of all the members of the assembly. So if they are 30, for presiding member, you should necessarily get 20 votes. Whereas in the case of district chief executives, it's those present and voting. You know, so it means that, and then it goes to the second one. If you get 50% and you don't get this. So it's possible that if you go through the process of 260, it's likely you may get 230 or 40 going through, 20 not going through. That's what the law anticipates. And for me, there's no issue problem with that. Why? You should respect the people's choice. The law says that it's not like...
The people's choice. This is not the people's choice.
Yes, because it's expressed through the, what do you call it, the assemblymen. The assemblymen are supposed to confirm. You know, Mr. President has not made an appointment.
He's made a nomination.
Nomination.
Yeah. So if the assembly does, then it assumes that they represent the people.
Exactly.
Okay, but okay.
And so that's why I'm saying you should respect their decision. The assembly members also have the chance, in consultation with their people, to confirm or not to confirm.
Yeah.
Because that's what is expected by the law. So if they go through that process, I don't have a big deal at all. I don't think it's a big deal.
I want to take a quick break. When I return, there are two issues that I want to address before we close. One is the gender question. As I said, Mr. Damboche, he's a known feminist, and so I wonder why under his watch that number has dropped to 14%. And then we'll talk about the Guan issue. What happened there to the 261st district? Why don't they have a nominee? Stay with me. And my guest is Damboche. He is the local government minister, a man who is having to juggle a lot in the wake of the nominations. I'll ask him very finally before we end. I know he said that people who are disturbing and making and destroying things, they don't have a case. But seriously, politics is a numbers game. Is there any approach to try and resolve people's, appease people, etc.? We'll talk about that very shortly before we end. But Mr. Boche, let me ask you this. It came up today in SALL, that's in the Guan district. The district in that last month, in fact, you paid a visit, met the chiefs and people. You assured them that the inauguration will be done shortly. From the views we heard today, they were expectant that after the assurance, when the nominations come, they'll have a name there representing them. They didn't have a name representing them. What happened?
The history of the Guan thing. There are others who making some profession out of it and try as much as possible to as it were go in a path which for me is purely not in the interest of the people there. We all know what happened. about the decision by the Electoral Commission for them not to take part in some voting process. But that's for Electoral Commission. The pact that Mr. President had with them was the promise he made that he'll make sure that they get a district. Yes. And Mr. President has signed it until ultimately the district. Then we had to go to elections. After which this whole business of why didn't they take part in elections happened and all that. And under that circumstance, it was not easy, to just carry on with that exercise. Because people still felt that the main issue was the parliamentary elections. So when we were appointed and went to ministry, we go back, because fortunately for some of us, these were the people we were dealing with in the regional reorganization as to the referendum that they all voted and moved to OT region. So we had to deal with them, and we had to build consensus. They themselves have a joint coordinating committee, and they started meeting and brought a report. There's a report they brought this year to me as to where they wanted to have the, what do you call it, the district capital.
Oh, the capital.
Yeah. But I thought finally, Mr. President, when he issued this instrument, gave it to Lekpemate. Fine. Then they started, very encouragingly coming out with the places where they can have as offices before government puts up permanent buildings. And many of the traditional areas offered some of these facilities for us. So finally, we had to talk to them and agree on a date so that we can pay a visit and have that consultation. And we had a very good meeting at Lekpemate, and all the traditional chiefs came there and said, look, we want all of us to confirm that we are ready for the inauguration. We hear voices that, oh, you are no longer even, some are not even interested. Some say they don't believe, they don't accept the fact that they are even in OT region. So please, let's all agree here and confirm that, yes, we want to have the inauguration done and then find the facilities that we need. And so, in the presence of all the traditional areas and then in the presence of our eminent statesman, Dr. Beda Samoa, that decision was taken. And it's clear that, well, that's what we can do. But in terms of posting on the personnel, it lies with the local government service. So we'll come back, have a meeting, a committee for local government service, and then we too have to go back. Some of the citizens had offered their buildings, some nice buildings there for the office. But you have to make sure that, you put it in the office situation and then be able to send equipment and all that. There's a whole report here that talks about the meeting they had, 23rd August in Hohoi Municipal Assembly, and then the things that they need, private structures that have to be used as an assembly office, the facility, a 5-bedroom, the status 95% complete, what they have to do, suitable for an assembly office, expandable to 7 offices, accommodate about 30 or more staff. Detailed work is being done to make sure that they get. We have all these things, the vehicles they will need, there's a whole budget to it, furniture and equipment, outstanding works on the temporary assembly office, electrical installation, everything. You understand? Because it's a serious thing. And we have a whole budget to it. And if I have pictures of some of the other buildings, when we did the regional reorganization, Mr. President decided that, look, let us center everything at the regional capital. At least next time, people will say that we are also far away from government center. So we have Directorate of Federal Roads at Ketekrachi, we have Education at Jasikan, we have Health at Rara, and then Agriculture at Nkwanta, at least for a start. And that's why we wanted to break it even within SALL. So that in fact, almost each of the 4 main traditional areas will have something. So you can see, there's a proposed Health Directorate for Pafu. There's a, look, additional staff.
But Mr. Bocho,
these are all things that are being...
The question really is, so this was more than a month ago that this conversation happened. I remember you went on the 14th of August.
But I'm saying a committee went back.
This
report
but
went back.
the main question then is, it's a simple question of nominating somebody.
Well, nominate somebody for what?
To occupy the position of the district, of the district assembly.
No, but that's not the issue.
Why was
the very day we inaugurate the assembly, it should functioning. They should have a building that should function.
Why didn't they have a name in the list that was released yesterday?
Because we have not inaugurated the assembly.
But you don't need that to put a name.
We need to do that.
To put the name out.
To put what name?
To put the name of the district chief executive out yesterday.
And so he'll be confirmed when, by who?
The assembly is not in place.
No.
Today, I've heard from your friend from the other side, the MP for Guan, who said the Assembly have already been elected.
They were elected after the district was created?
Yeah, he said the Assembly have been elected. It's a case of...
When were they elected?
He mentions last year.
When were they elected?
He mentions last year.
They were elected as Assembly members for where?
For the Guan district. Were they not?
Assembly election took place last year?
After the creation of the Guan district?
No.
There hasn't been an election for the Assembly?
No.
Yes, but that's...
They're existing, you see, that's it. You don't allow people who just want to think that they can get political advantage out of this. Something that they couldn't do. And that Mr. President had fulfilled his promise.
So what's the real issue?
There's no real issue.
With the lack of putting out a name yesterday.
There's nothing, it wasn't part of the discussion. That's not, nobody, because that was not the issue.
But you have a district. You have a Guan district assembly.
No, so it's functioning.
No, but you created it.
Evans, get it straight.
By law.
We created law. It has to be inaugurated. If you look at the model standing orders, there's what we call inauguration of an assembly. You just don't create an assembly, then it's not functioning. There should be an inauguration of the assembly. There's an inaugural meeting of an assembly. You understand? That has to take place. Then, do they have a presiding member? Do they have a presiding member? So please, let's get those people who just want to throw out things.
So when will that process complete? So remember they don't have a representation in Parliament. Well, so when will that process?
We talk about assembly.
Yes. So let's take that. So when will that
parliamentary?
True. So let's.
But
so
we
when
had
will that process?
I'm saying that I paid a visit there. I led the delegation there, and we agreed. They showed the structures. At that time, we could not visit all the places to know the structures.
They're listening to you now. Well, is there a time frame? Is there a time frame within which?
No, that's not the issue.
That's an issue.
No.
When would
who determines? When the inauguration?
When would the inauguration
happen?
Who
determines this? I can't fix the date here. I don't fix the date of inauguration at here, this studio. I'm saying that we paid the visit. I led the visit. I chose the date. I will go there, and we went there. We had a discussion with the people. Very good meeting with all the traditional leaders. And they form a committee. I'm showing you these things because I heard you talk about it.
But this committee's work is done.
No, this work is done. So we have.
It has to be implementation.
It has to be implementation. We have to send furniture. We have to do the installation. Some adjustments have to be made and all that. As soon as that is done, that's when we'll be inaugurated.
So you can't put a time to when this process will be done.
I'm sure it's a question of weeks. It will be done.
Weeks.
Yes.
Finally, before we very briefly, as I said, you are a feminist. So how come you have 14% of women in the nominations? That is a decrease from what we had before.
Well, the most important issue is this: the women engagement in the political life is something that we have to continue to work to make sure that we get many of our women interested and become active in our.
They were not interested at all.
Active and so but the number of people who came. Express interest in this. I'm sure, and I know because I have seen some names who did not appear at the vetting.
Okay, so
I have seen some names.
Okay,
who did not appear at the vetting.
So it's a matter of.
It means that Mr. President has.
The pool was limited. The pool.
Mr. President has gone ahead to get other leaders nominated for this position, even though. They may not have appeared before.
So what it is that it's not as if a lot of women made themselves available, the president just drew 14%.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So the 14% is the best the president could do?
Well, they're based on those who presented themselves. Yes. But so the issue that we have, the issue is that we have to all put in place the mechanism and get people. So we don't have to all wait. I'm sure, again, we'll wait till major elections. They'll say, look at the number of women who are in parliament.
So what deliberate policy is the president going to put in place to increase this the next time? Because your party says you want to do 30%.
Yes.
So what deliberate policies
I'm sure that will come up. It's something that they,
you are in favor of that?
Why not? But I believe that people also, it's not just for the fun of it. People should be interested in something. You understand it?
Would a quota work? Would a quota work? Create a quota and say 260 100 of them women.
I know other countries have done that. I think.
Would you support that in Ghana?
Uganda or something.
Would you support that in Ghana?
I'll support it.
Okay.
I'll support
Mr. Boche, thank you very much.
It's not just a matter of that. We should make sure that we also encourage them to willingly want to.
Thank you very much. That is Dan Boche, FMNS, and he supports the quota. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Whatever that means.
My name is Kojo Yankson. Let me tell you how to turn back time. You can now bring back all the fun, all the excitement, all the controversy of the Super Morning Show and all your favorite Joy shows when you go to myjoyonline.com/podcasts. Just select your favorite show and bring it all back again. Joy 99.7 FM, radio for discerning listeners.
It's radio. Joy 99.7.
Good morning and welcome to News File.